This is the Drew Experience Show, the show that's 80% combat sports and 20% everything else. Today, we're back to 80% combat sports because today I have quite a legend on in terms of Quebec martial arts and probably Canada for what he's accomplished. He has one of the biggest, he's a history book. Not only that with what he's seen, but he's worked with amazing talents such as Georges St. Pierre. He helped promote Tyson's when Tyson did his Broadway show. He's also met Mike Tyson. He is the ISKA director for Canada, trying to help bring kickboxing back into Canada and legalize it not only in Quebec, but nationwide. He's also been a witness to the early days of mixed martial arts, but also he was part of the boom period of kickboxing. He is the brother of the Jean-Yves, the Iceman Theriault. So he's super accomplished. I am so honored. Oh, and also he helps run WCA fight nights at the casino and came up with some pretty cool concepts to help bring popularity for kickboxing, which he's done an amazing job at. So I want to first, and I also want to thank my friend Emilio Greco for connecting us. I am super, super honored to be hosting today Vic Theriault. Welcome, Vic.
Thanks so much, Drew. Thanks for the invite.
Well, thank you for coming on. I hope the intro was good because I really have to read off all your accolades and what you've accomplished.
Thanks. It was great. Thank you.
No problem. So you have quite a history, so you have a lot of stories and I had to prepare my questions. So that's why I'm getting I have them ready here. I flew them by you, as you know. So I just want to make sure I have everything here. Let's see. Okay. So the one question I have is, you come from a very decorated family, your brother being a kickboxer and yourself both being kickboxers and jiu-jitsu. So I want to know, before everything came to you guys, how did you guys discover martial arts and why karate or kickboxing? That's what I want to know.
Well, actually, it all started, in the year 70, 72, Bruce Lee stuff was all out, the movies, and like every young kid, we got excited with the martial arts. And also we had in my high school, there was quite a gang of bullies that was a lot of time intimidating. And I decided to ask my brother Jean-Yves. This gang of bullies were training at another school called Ninja Jiu-Jitsu, and I didn't want to go to the same school, so I've seen an ad for Theriault Jiu-Jitsu, and I said to Jean-Yves and my best friend Andre Beauchamp, I said, let's go check that club out. And the history was made. We went there, and what's fun about it, the martial art. To correct you, I never took a karate course, even though I participated in a lot of karate tournaments. But I enjoyed, I had a great youth in the martial arts through John Theriault and the Theriault Jiu-Jitsu system. And we actually, a few months after I started martial art, when I was a yellow belt, the karate, our school had organized a winter festival karate tournament. And the bullies were in that tournament, and I was just a yellow belt, and Jean-Yves was also a yellow belt, and the two Theriault brothers, we entered that tournament. And my first fight was against a top bully, and I remember I was like very, very nervous, but by being nervous, I just lifted my leg and kicked him in the face so fast, and it was 1-0 in no time. And then after that, I just did it again, and within maybe 40 seconds, I won that first fight against the bully at school in 40 seconds, humiliated him completely. And it gave me a lot of confidence. And the fun fact of this first ever tournament at the carnival of the winter carnival at La Salle High School was that the main event fight was Jean-Yves Theriault against Victor Theriault for the title. And Jean-Yves won. So, but it was a bit prequel to what was going to happen, I guess. And after that, there was a karate tournament in Hall, Quebec, with Bill Superfoot Wallace coming to town. And I had read a few magazines about the Superfoot and everything, and that was quite exciting for me. And I asked my brother Jean-Yves to go, and I wanted to remember in those days, we were jiu-jitsu guys, and we were not invited in karate tournaments. We were known as guys, these guys like the fingers in the eyes and the elbows and the knees and all this. That's not clean fighting. It was a self-defense kind of jiu-jitsu, the Ken Ryu system. And we weren't welcome in those tournaments. But I wanted to go see a tournament. I went with Jean-Yves and I saw Bill Wallace. And at that time, they had the Andre Langelier schools. They had all the black belt had a yellow car. They had a yellow suits. It was kind of really loud. And so it was kind of impressive for me to watch these guys. And I still remember seeing that first fight in karate where Bill Wallace was in a horse stand in front of Webb Corcoran. And Webb Corcoran has these glasses on with, one of those elastics so they don't move. And the kick came up, wow, right, a hook kick right on the side of the glasses, shattered the glasses, and Corcoran was started bleeding. So obviously they had paid all this money to fly in Wallace. 10 seconds in his first fight, they're supposed to disqualify the guy, and then they get a meeting and they say that the glass actually cut him. So they kept on going. And then I seen Wallace win that big tournament with a huge trophy. And at the end, he didn't even want the trophy. He gave it back. And he said, because I couldn't bring it in the plane, it was so big. But I was struck by, wow, this is so cool. Wow. It's like he was like a gunslinger going to town and kicking the shit out of everybody at that tournament. And I always enjoyed that. And another one of my idol was a karate star named Wally Slokey. So I turned out that when I got my black belt, I decided to go to the biggest tournament, the Canadian Karate Championships in Otibicoke Center in Toronto. And I ended up winning the Grand Champ. And that tournament, it turns out that I was never had a jiu-jitsu guy with no karate, no katas, nothing, win a Grand Champ. So I was very proud of that. And that's a bit my history in the karate games. I did a lot of tournaments after that. The Battle of Atlanta, I went there. I fought for Canada and in Greece, and I enjoyed. I fought in the Canada versus USA tournament in New York, where I made the final, and I fought against Billy Blank. That was one of my best. The guy that invented Taibo. It was one of my best karate fights when I was young, and I also had the pleasure of doing two exhibition fights with Bill Wallace, who was an idol when I was young. So that was kind of cool. One in Kitchener, Ontario, and another one in Sorel, Quebec.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty crazy, especially how you said, like, eventually you went from jujitsu, like, the Can Ryu system, which is a self-defense, and you're able to parlay that into karate. So, when we were talking off the record, all the styles, like, like Kempo, Kyokushin, Shotokan, and you wanted to surprise me. So do tell me, what was the style you ended up transitioning into?
My own style. No, and what I was surprised, I wanted to surprise you saying that I never took a karate course in my life.
Wow.
I did. What happened is I got to really love the sport of karate and like the way these guys were fighting. And I got the honor to be invited when I won a Canadian championship in Hull. I got one of my friends, Bob Morrow of Samurai Karate in Toronto, started paying me every year to go give seminars there. So I would go into this place. I'd had about 70 black belts waiting for me. And I would teach these guys. I never knew karate, but they just wanted to learn how to score points faster. I had analyzed the game, and I was trying to, I had my own little style: block, counterattack, relax, explode. I learned from some of the best teachers. Joe Louis, I don't know if you know Joe Louis, the legendary Joe Louis in karate. Well, Joe Louis taught me private course for 1 week in a cottage up north till 5, 6 in the morning. He would give me tips. He trained with Bruce Lee. He trained with all the best. He was the first iconic, and he had a teaching style. As even today, the late great Joe Louis, to me, was the greatest instructor private course I ever could have had. And this is what I've been communicating to most of my fighters: the relax, explode system, the how to break the distance gap, the step over side kick that he used to work with Bruce Lee. All these stories, man, I would learn from actually one of the best, and that's what I feel made me a pretty good coach.
It's impressive. So when you and Jean-Yves came up, well, yeah, I don't want to make it. It's a view I have on, but when you guys came up, um, it was in a boom period of martial arts, like with Bruce Lee being, now it's like MMA. Before that, it was kind of jujitsu with a mix of Muay Thai. But tell me, what do you feel your role was in helping grow karate and kickboxing in Canada and Quebec, and especially in the 80s? Like, what happened? What gave you your opportunity to be like, hey, you know what? We can make something happen here.
Well, actually, the father of the sport is George Sylvain and John Terry, and I feel that those are the guys that laid the groundwork, and I learned a lot from my instructor, John Theriault, on everything involving the um, the making of a show. I was the kick counter, and then I was a judge, and then I was this, and then, so I did every role. And don't forget, at that time, before in the early 80s, we had a big deal with Molson Pro Kickboxing. We were killing it. We were filling out arenas everywhere at Etobicoke, Waterloo, Kitchener, Ontario, and we ended up the tour at the CNE in the CNE in Toronto, live on Wide World of Sports Canada. And 3 weeks later, the Boxing Commission in Ontario decided the sport was getting too big, and they banned us. They created a moratorium and expect. So what this did is we were stuck with no place to go. We were making, I was learning from John Theriault. So what happened is that we had no place to go. Jean-Yves had a chance to maybe go into boxing, but he was the pioneer of his sport, and he wanted to keep his sport. And then my instructor, John Theriault, met 3 promoters in Montreal that wanted to bring kickboxing to Quebec. Roger Martel, André Gilbert, and Ray Almacé, the guy with the big mustache. So those 3 are the pioneers that did the first show in Montreal against Jarvis Gardner at the Verdun Auditorium. And I was like people saw it. It was like a new drug. It's like a new idol was born. They seen Johnny was against a tough guy. It went 6 rounds, and it was a beautiful, beautiful technical fight, and then ending with a great knockout. So what happened after that is these guys wanted to promote the sport, but they didn't have any knowledge of the sport, and the sport had no history in Montreal. Therefore, we had a like great karate in Kyokushinkai through the André Gilbert, great Taekwondo through the Chung Lee things, Daniel Gauthier and the other Kyokushinkai branch. They had all these branches of organizations, of great martial artists, but they had no kickboxing coach and nothing. So John made a deal with them to hire my guy out of Montreal, one of my best black belts, Vic, that would be ready to move to Montreal and implement a system. So therefore, Ray Almacé bought me a gym on Papineau and Beaubien called Le Gymnase Super Action, and I proceeded to move here. I remember the first 2-3 weeks, I was alone in a little apartment. It was really, in a new world, Quebec. Even though I'm French, it was, it was very different mentality than Ottawa. And so I toughed it out, and he had bought a gym from some guys that were kind of heavy. So the guys just wanted to make the money, but they wanted to stay in the gym and train. So for the first 3 weeks, I had a lot of bad apples. So I had to implement myself to make sure that those guys, I'm the boss in this gym, I'm the coach in this gym, and you want to teach or give private course, fine, you can do whatever you want, but don't come into my class and bother me in my class. So I straightened things out, everything went good, and I started using that place to phone André Gilbert up, send me a few of your guys, and I started giving them tips. They weren't my fighters, but my mission was to build a sport. And my main goal was to create what I still do today with the World Combat Arena, wars against arts versus arts. What happens when a boxer fights let's say martial arts? What happens when a Taekwondo fighter fights a great karate fighter? Who wins? What happens when a Kung Fu star fights? The same thing that made the UFC great, but in stand-up fighting only. This is why the WCA is called the Striker Series. I tried to eliminate the word kickboxing and created a new sport, the Striker Series, which is stand-up only. To me, a dream fight is not, people looked at Mayweather against McGregor. That was like today. Oh, that was a great fight. But no, that wasn't a great fight. That wasn't arts. That wasn't arts versus arts. That was a boxer against a guy that's not even a great amateur boxer. That wasn't fair. But now you do that same fight under Victor Theriault's rule, arts versus art. It would be 4 weapons, okay? 2 legs, 2 hands, same target as boxing. Therefore, when Mayweather would fight, the other guy McGregor would have been able to sidekick the shit out of him as long as it's not below the belt. Obviously, nobody would pay for a fight where McGregor can kick him in the legs because you're taking away the balance of the fighter. But you get a great boxer in a type of fight like that, in a striker's war like that, Then you had boxer would be able to block a spinning kick because it's the same target going towards his head. He'd have to adapt to the side kicks, and he'd block a side kick, he'd get a jab in the head. So it would change the dynamic of the fight, would make a great, great fight. So just that's to me why I created the striker series. I like this. I like the stand-up fighter. One of the reasons that I prefer the full contact rules of the kickboxing was always because I feel that it takes a lot of skills to be able to throw a side kick and double up with ground kicks and everything and look good. If you're not skilled and if you don't have the backdrop of karate, taekwondo, and years in training, you'll look shitty because you won't you don't have the strong base. So this is one of the things that I like about the sport of kickboxing is that it's exciting, it takes grace, and it takes guts, and it takes skills to be able to do that.
It's very true. So you're talking about like in the 80s when you got some of Gilbert's fighters, and was one of those guys Reynald Lamar? Because I want to know, Reynald Lamar was apparently, he was the future at the time, as you were telling me. So what was that interaction like when you first met? God rest his soul, by the way. He's had a huge impact on martial arts.
He had a great impact. And just before I tell you, the first coach, when I had to deal with the Montreal Casino to create the Isodan tournament for the 3 years, first coach I approached was Reynald Lamar. Coeur de Lion, Reynald Lamar. He had his gym in the Beaubien area, and
I go there. That's my gym.
Yeah, and it was so cool downstairs at that little place, and we would meet in the weekends, and he would get these two nobodies from Cowansville, but this kid had the heart of lions, and he would know they were crooked, and he knew I was starting something. I was looking for a talent search. I said, I don't care if they're no good, as long as they have the heart and we'll look for talent. And it was a major blow when he passed away. But just to get back to your question, Reynald Lamar was with Michel Rochette, the two greatest, and I probably say Michel Rochette, Reynald Lamar, Michel Rochette, Jex Fontaine, Michel Lavalle, and Daryl Hannigan. Those guys, they brought the sport, they were the heir apparent to Jean-Yves Theriault. Because when I started, we didn't have an undercard. We have Jean-Yves, and we have all these new guys coming in and kicking the living shit out of each other, and they had no styles, whatever. So we had to go in and create and see who had the potential. As soon as we saw the first fight of Reynald Coeur de Lion Lamar, he blew the place up. The first fight he did was against, if I remember well, we had made a match between him and Joe Udman. Joe Udman was a famous coach of Ducarmel Sirius, who was a spectacular fighter. I forgot to mention him, but he was one of the greats also. And Ducarmel, Reynald Lamar, if there was 5,000 people in that arena for that fight, for the main event with Jean-Yves, but when Reynald came out, at least 2,500 were hysteric about him, and the other guy, the other clan, for hysteric for Joe Udman. And the way he came out and he just blew this guy right out of the park. He won in the first or second round, made him quit. And he got that fan base. And from there, we knew right away, our eyes were locked. Coeur de Lion Lamar, and he had a stable mate that wasn't that bad either. His name was Alain Bonamy. Alain Bonamy is one of the great iconic fighters in Canada.
They're like brothers. They're like this, basically.
They're brothers, and he's sick right now. But one of the things that Alain Bonamy people don't realize, Alain Bonamy beat Davey Hilton, who had about 200 amateur boxing fights. He was the most feared boxer in Canada, and Alain Bonamy, with only 5 or 6 or 8 boxing fights, upsets Dave Hilton. So to me, he's in my heart. He's one of the great gladiators of all times in Canada. And I know that when Reynald left this earth, it really, really hurt. They were like brothers, those two. And I still think of him, and he's in my heart all the time.
I really like him. I wish that's someone I could have had on my podcast. When people ask me, like, who's one Kyokushin mind that you wish you had, I said always Reynald Lamar. said I really wish I could have him, because I got into Kyokushin right when he passed away. Like right when that's when I took up martial arts. Because before I did YMCA karate, but I hated it at 7 years old because it's not.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
hate. Oh my god, I hated it. Like the guy was like, just do 10 push-ups, and then he's like, I was like, I don't want to do this. It's YMCA karate. Then I started playing like video games like Street Fighter and Tekken, and obviously I like to say I was kind of bullied in high school, so I kind of like escaped into those fighting games, and I always imagined myself like, what if I knew martial arts? Then I watched Karate Kid, and I was like, I want that, but I never got into it. So then I watched famously, I watched John Jones and Gegard Mousasi fights like 3 weeks apart from each other. And that's when I said, okay, it's either I'm going to get into martial arts or I'm not going to. And then, I got into Taekwondo first, but I didn't like it. I felt it was too limiting. And I went into Kyokushin, and that's where I've been ever since.
Wow. Wow. That's great. That's a great, at least you're passionate about sport, you like the sport, and you know the direction you wanted to go in your martial art. Like me, I I like to dabble and take. I feel that everybody's got something to give in the martial arts, and whatever art, there's always something. And I respect every art. I respect every discipline. I like to take the best out of every discipline. Like George St. Pierre, that's what he does. Like George is the most hybrid fighter there is out there. A bit of everything with this guy.
Yeah, he's really been an ambassador for Kyokushin, and to take it back to Reynald, I mean, yeah, if he was still around, I really think things would have been much more different, because a lot of things changed after he passed away with Kyokushin, and whether it's for the good or bad, I don't know. But Reynald was an anchor. Like everybody, you mentioned his name was known in Ontario. His name was even known out west, apparently. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah, in Japan he was known, and
yeah.
they loved him in Japan. So I truly believe that he would have been head of ISKA, of Kyokushinkai Canada. And one thing that made me very happy is Alain Veilleux is a personal friend of mine. He's a Kyokushinkai in Cowansville, and he adulated. And one thing that made me happy was that how Alain Veilleux told me that Renal, when I signed that contract with the kickboxing had been dead for almost 20 years. I quit completely promoting after I had a bad taste in my mouth after bringing that uh, MMA show in Kanawagi, the Battlecade event. And I just stopped everything for 20 years. And then I get this call to meet Lotto Quebec, and they had this new theater that they were going to build, and they proposed me, and I got a contract to get back in my first love. I really missed it. And Renal Lamar, when he found that out, he was the first coach. I was producing the Black Belt Hall of Fame, and that night Andre Gilbert was getting honored. And I met all the Kyokushinkai guy because the chief was getting honored at that. And this is where I met René Lamar, and I started telling him, hey, I just signed a deal with the casino. He was like a kid in a candy store. He was so excited to just be back. He knew that I was going to revive his legend through him being a coach of the Aizudan tournament. Because for me, René Lamar was the ultimate striker. There's only a front gear with him. It wasn't like he wasn't going backwards. He would come in, he was like a powder keg. So for me, he was a very exciting and charismatic fighter that will never be forgotten.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, even like I could just speak when I was doing Kyokushin tournaments, the stories were like Reynald Lamar's school would clean out the tournaments. Like they had like a hit squad. It was like of Julie Lamar, my coach Mohammed Chick, who's like a dear friend, and like
I never met him, but he's a name that I heard a lot of, and if you give him my regards anyway, he's a heavyweight I wanted.
Yeah,
because I heard so much good things about him, so too bad I never had a chance to promote him. But
he was honestly like one of the youngest ever to become a knee dan in Kyokushin. Like it's like unheard of to become a second dan like in such a fast time, but it's like there are those outliers, Vic. Like you said, you look for talent, and there's always going to be an outlier that's going to stand out of the bunch. And it's like that with John Jones. It's like, I'm not trying to compare, like, I mean,
no,
look,
no, I know.
but there's always going to be outliers. And Julie Lamar too, you know, shout out there, one of the greatest women fighters in Kyokushin Canada history. And there's others too. So if I don't mention them, I just know I've mentioned them on my last shows. Like there's enough pie of success and attention to go around to give
Yeah, yeah.
accolades. Yeah. But that's crazy. So, and during the 80s, it was like really like you had like Verdun Arena. What was it like when people went to that arena? Like, cause it was like the form of kickboxing. You had the Montreal Canadiens and you go to Verdun for kickboxing. What was that? What was the 80s like in Quebec? What was it, the sports scene like?
Well, it got to be that it got to be at a point where around 1985, it was actually killing boxing. You know, boxing had just uh, finished they were just starting to build a new crop of fighters, which was Eric Lucas and Stéphane Ouellet. They were on the beginning of their careers. So we had that window when we came in with Johnny Theriault in the kickboxing, and then with all the undercard that we built, we had a character driven type. We had the stars of Taekwondo with the Jersey Long with his drop kicks, and so we had a lot of versatile stuff. But the iconic place became Verdun because first of all we had a great deal with the manager. Verdun was renowned as a white elephant where nobody used to go there. There was nothing there. So therefore the price was kind of reasonable, and that's how I got to do the first deal with Verdun, and it became a place where people, you know, instead of doing the shows a different little place, Verdun became the place for the sport. And I don't know why, but I think it was more of a blue collar town and everything, and it was kind of centered, you know, people from the West Island, and so it worked for us. The only regret I have when I signed a huge deal with Showtime to do the first ever Karate Mania was that I didn't do it in the Montreal Forum. I had a meeting with them, and one of my friends, Roger Martel, had rented the forum for $14,000 when everybody else was renting it for 20. So when I met Aldo Gianpolo, who was now he used to be the manager of Verdun. Now he had a promotion. And now he's heading the forum. So I thought I had a free pass there. I'm going to go see him. Blah blah blah. And it turned out that it was 22,000 or 20,000, and I didn't get the parking. I didn't get the beer. I didn't get nothing. So I had to calculate my beans and say, no, this is not a good idea. And I filled up Verdun Auditorium like I wouldn't believe. I have the record as still today. Never had any place as packed as that. And it turned out good because I sold a lot of beer.
Yeah, I really think Verdun represents that blue collar side of Quebec, like a lot of Quebecois, like, you know, who are like the tradesmen, hard workers. And I think that's what it gives that pride, like a lot of like hard work that stems from Quebec culture. So you kind of made it, you kind of created a community in a sense with Verdun. Do you realize, do you think of that sometimes? It's like, wow, it's like I kind of made a community out of this whole thing.
I know. Well, one of the great moments of my time in Verdun is they had an anniversary of the arena, of the history of the arena, and they had all the key players. And I got invited with my wife there, and I was on a head table with Pat Lafontaine and Norris, Rocket Richard, and all those Dennis
Savard.
Savard of the Verdun. So it's kind of neat taking all the pictures with them and being part of that, you know, because I felt like I had brought a lot to. One time I was actually to thank them, just a side story. I was so happy with them that I hired to be Chuck Norris's agent for one day. I was all day in a limousine bringing them everywhere. And I asked him, Chuck, you got to do me a favor. Can we stop in Verdun to say hello and thank you to all the staff, the blue collar workers, and even if it's a 5-minute thing. Well, that was a thing that I really enjoyed. The limousine comes out, Chuck Norris comes out, all the blue collars are. I phoned Yvon Turcot in the morning. I said, I'm bringing Chuck around 12 o'clock. And they were all there waiting, and he took his time to take a picture with every one of those blue collars. And the guys still thank me today when they see me. And that was in 93 when Montreal won the Stanley Cup too.
That was
And
wild.
yeah, and I got to bring Chuck Norris to a practice of the Canadians, a closed practice, and it was just me and him at the bench, sitting on the bench like this, watching the players go around, and all my friends that were on the team were freaking out because they couldn't concentrate on their practice because they would see Chuck Norris on the thing and they were just going around and around. And then Jacques Demers said, okay, screw it. He threw his hockey stick up in the air and said, okay, go. And then I see all this crowd, my idols, the Canadians, all skating towards me and Chuck. Turned out that Chuck Norris, when he was doing Texas Ranger,
Yeah.
his neighbor was Marcel Dion of the LA Kings.
Wow.
So therefore, he would always go to practice. Beyond when they were doing the barbecues in the backyard, he would say, hey, you want to come to the game tonight? And he would give him some tickets. So Chuck would go in the room and say, so when Chuck got to meet the Canadians, he was telling me in the limo, he said, it's not the same thing as he says, these are the finest group of young men I ever met in my life. He says, in the LA Kings, well, they have stars like Stallone and Kurt Russell. They're always in the dressing room anyway. So it's like a big deal, Chuck Norris. But when Chuck was in Montreal, it was a big deal for the players, and he felt it. And he was such an avid hockey fan. I never realized how much of a hockey fan. So Bernard Brissette, who was the head marketing guy, came down, hey, Vic, we're going to give him a hockey stick. And every player signed that stick. So we're in the limo all day, and I had big hockey sticks signed by all the Habs. And I turned out last time I saw him, I said, the hockey stick I got you? Well, did you know that a month later they won the Stanley Cup? You were with the Stanley Cup champions. And he said, yeah, I was following it. So it was kind of funny.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So we've changed up to from the 80s now. So the 80s are ending, highlight. It's like the high point of Quebec kickboxing, karate. Jean-Yves on top of the world. There's a lot of right now, guys like Bonami, Reynald, like they're helping propel and lift up Quebec kickboxing. 1993, something new comes in, known as the Ultimate Fighting Championship. What do you remember about November 12th, 1993, when you saw the first ever UFC? What went on in your mind?
Well, I was blown away because it was, for every martial artist, they always had that, what happens, that was a Taekwondo champion thinks he's the best in the world, and this karate guy thinks he's the best. And so now the question was going to be answered. What happens when arts versus arts? So that was kind of cool. What I remember the most at that time is the whole wanting to, the scandal the sport brought to the world. People in those days, in my story, when I'm writing a story right now about what happened in Kahnawake, but people now my story makes a lot more sense because people didn't know who Senator McCain was. But Senator McCain, who ran for president, in those days, he was like a thorn in the side of the MMA. He was a senator that was calling it human cockfighting and wanted to stop it everywhere. Well, by him doing that, it became bigger and bigger. People were curious to go see this thing. And I still remember a time where I went, I spoke to you about this adventure. I got invited by one of my friends who was driving to Buffalo, New York to see the first time he was coming to Buffalo. Well, that was kind of not too far for us to, so he said, so I don't want to go alone. You want to, shit, yeah, I'll go, man, I'm in. So I split on the guys and we're going there. And I sent an email to the PR person saying who I was and that I'll be there because usually I get an invitation or I get a certain, because they know that I'm a promoter in Montreal with access to a lot of fighters and it's a new sport. Well, maybe by giving a call to this guy. So I got really lucky. We get there. We're on the highway about an hour from Buffalo and we hear on the radio, the show's been banned, canceled. They're kicked out of Buffalo. And then we're saying, we've just been like 7-8 hours in a car ride. We're really pissed off. No. And I tell my friend, well, let's go. Let's go there. I want to meet Art Davies anyway. We're here. We're going to go meet them. So we get there and they're all in the lobby, in a huge lobby to determine who's going to get on the plane. And there's 2 places left. And then I meet Art Davies. Hi, I'm Victor Theriault. Hi, Jean-Yves Theriault's brother, blah, blah, blah. You want to come? You want to come? What do you mean you want to come? You want to come on the plane and see the show? We'll fly you back after the show the next day. Hotel, everything paid. So, it's just one of those being in the right place at the right time. So me and my buddy, we said, yeah, we put the car there. We get on this private jet plane and we fly down to, we fly down to Carolina. I think it was North Carolina in a little theater place. And they put up the cage and they do they did the show. But what's kind of funny is it happened to me twice, this type of stuff, where the first time was with the UFC, and later on in the early 90s, a new group was starting that were trying to be the next UFC called Battlecade, whatever takes you in. And those were the group with financed by Penthouse Magazine and General Media. And I get a call from a guy named John Peretti to say, do you want to come to, we need a fighter. We're creating the Battlecade, whatever it takes to win. And Destiny came knocking on the door again, because a week before I went to this karate tournament, and this kid, Robert Loyer, a karate champion, was asking me, Vic, can you give me a cage fight? So I get a call, Destiny, Vic, I need a lightweight, about 135, exactly the size and weight of Robert Loyer. I said, hey, what a weird coincidence, John. I was just talking last week to a guy that I think he'd fit the bill. He's got experience in boxing. He's a great kickboxer, and he's the best karate fighter I ever seen in my life in Canada. He's the fastest one. He won the most grand championship, Robert Loyer. Vic, we got a deal, man. So I'm all happy. I said, the fight's going to happen in the New York Armory in New York City. So I get all my plane ticket by the mail. I'm ready. My fighter is already flown to New York, waiting in the room. And then I get a call from Penthouse saying that the show is barred. It's been banned in New York by that prick, Senator McCain. And they were all pissed off at Senator McCain. And they say, the show's been moved. They said, we canceled your flight to New York. We have a private jet for you that's going to fly you to the fight. So I get on the tarmac, and this really nice captain in a little small plane, 16 seats. And he says, enjoy your flight. And he's got this huge smile on his face. I'm wondering why. I get into that plane, and there's the 12 Penthouse pets, the most beautiful women in the world, the Penthouse pets, with one girl who's an old lady called Dolly. She's the manager, and she's sort of watching so the guys don't, So I'm sitting with Miss April or whatever, and she starts telling me what they're doing. So we work for Penthouse, we're the car girls, and the show's been banned. So I get all the information
Yeah,
from her.
you know, it's funny. I heard apparently that the old UFCs, they were hiring like strippers or like Penthouse or Playmates. Now they have like Ariani, they
Oh,
have
yeah.
like ring girls. But before, yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, this is gold to me.
Yeah. So
This is
that's
history.
yeah. They get there. And the first thing I see when I get there is Mr. T. Remember Mr. T?
Of
The
course.
guy where, yeah, and Mr. T, you fool, you fool. And he's yelling, and he's interviewing my fighter. So I'm this manager. I brought him there and everything. I'm looking at Robert Loyer doing this. And on the corner of my eye, I see these two guys. They're frantically trying to set up that cage on the show the night before that got canceled for the live pay-per-view. That signal had to go. So I'm there, and I listen to those two guys, which is Bob Guccione's son, Richard, and Donald Zuckerman. Those are the key guys. And they're saying, well, we just lost $1 million gate and everything. And what I'm going to tell you right now is where destiny happened, where all this rules and everything. I came in and I say, I have a place where you could do it next time and you won't have any problem. Boy, was I wrong. I said, who are you? The guy, Zuckerman, looked really mad that I came in the conversation when they were all stressed out. I said, well, I'm Victor Theriault. And then Peretti was right there. I said, oh, you're Victor Theriault, the Brothers Iceman. I just saw your show in Karate Mania on Showtime. It was great, man. Oh, welcome here. Are you a fighter okay? So then Zuckerman started treating me a little nicer because he's seen that the other guy's excited to talk to me. So then he listens to me and he says, what are you talking about? He says, I gave him my card. I said, I have a place on sovereign land, 15 minutes from Montreal. It's the community of the Mohawks, and I've been doing some all Iroquois Toughman Championship as a consultant for Mike Thomas there for past 3 years. We never had any problems. Oh, we'll get back to you. So this, that moment and that all that time of the history of the sport, I find that's the most important moment in the history of MMA in Canada, because that brought in the show, that brought in a huge stink by having fighters arrested, and then broken promise by the government of Quebec to Mike Thomas and them, we won't bother you on their next show, or we'll let you do it, and then change their mind or whatever. And it turned out that all that stuff did is it created pressure for the government to legalize MMA in Quebec.
That was under the Bouchard administration, right? 1996, we're talking.
Bouchard was the prime minister, and I
Yeah.
have a scene in the story I was writing is there's a scene that went all over the news with Bouchard with his cane hitting in l'Assemblée nationale, the house, and he's hitting with his cane on the thing and said, "And you, Charest, are you going to you want to start a new Oka crisis?" So the Battlecade event in Montreal was, you have to remember the context. It was 6 years after the Oka crisis. Therefore, it was like a powder keg. The
Oh
federal government didn't want to do anything.
no.
Yeah, and so to me, as the promoter of this with Mike Thomas, it was like the ultimate nightmare week. Everything. I remember going to rent all my jibs, my cameras, and everything, and I'm in front of the guy renting the stuff, and the phone rings, and it's the CRTC saying, if you rent any cameras to these guys, you lose all your accreditations for Nagano Olympics.
Oh my
He
God.
hangs up. He's white as a drum. He says, Vic, I'm sorry to announce you. I can't. I'll rent you the stuff, but I can't put you in my staff. They'll lose their accreditation. So he gave me a number of a guy named Dawson that saved my ass. And I went to see him. He lent me the staff. Everything was a nightmare. The night before the show, we get a phone call from the government's lawyer saying that there's going to be an injunction on the pay-per-view signals. So that the fight will not be seen. We'll let you do your little event, but the Penthouse will never come back to Canada with all the money they're going to lose. So it turned out at the end of that show, what made me the happiest is before the show started, if we don't have that signal in the sky by 7 o'clock, everything falls, and they have to put a movie into that slot that we have for pay-per-view, right? Everybody that bought this have to be reimbursed. It's a nightmare. And we're like biting bullets, and while we're biting bullets, I have like maybe 5, 10, 15 microphones in front of my face as a public relation guy for this event, and saying, well, it's unfortunate that this show will not be seen. Well, I know they're trying to plug this truck that went through the borders without being seen, because Jean Chrétien had blocked every border, so no production truck can come. We had lost our Dome production truck out of Toronto. It was a nightmare, everything to stop this show from coming off. When I look back today, I think it was the Boxing Commission of Montreal that got the pressure from Jose Sullivan. Because if general media would have had a free pass here, it would have opened up. And the first city with a boxing commission allowing MMA. So I'm sure that the WCA, WBA phoned them, hey, if you allow that sport there, it's killing us. Now you have to analyze the period of the beginning of MMA in Canada. This is the pay-per-view pie. And one quarter of that pie, one part of that pie was Mike Tyson fights. And the other part of the pie was Hulk Hogan fights. And a small part was like porno films, and the rest was more movies. What happened when the UFC came in, what happened? The pie of boxing went like this, and the pie and the new kid in town came in the middle. So my idea of what I really think happened in New York is probably like the bigwigs, the Vince McMahon, WF, everything to try to shut down that show in Montreal. Everybody trying to shut down that show from the boxing world. It became like a powder keg. And then at the end of the show, when the show happened, well, they were so embarrassed that the Quebec government had been sort of outwitted by the lawyers of New York and everything, and the signal did go off. The injunction didn't work. There's a type of a double jeopardy clause, that you can't have an injunction on the same crime twice. So what they had done is they planned to have a plan B. Once AT&T, we lost our signal with AT&T, the night before we knew that's where they were vulnerable, and they decided to have a plan B. So they made a deal with Bell. So when one injunction came in at 11:59, so that they knew that we can wake up the judge in the middle of the night, they had to wait till Monday morning, we were screwed. Well, we had the plan B. And this is why people don't know. You're finding out today, that's how that signal went off in the sky and the history was made, because I would have been like, I'm the one that brought them. I'm the one that told them that, you won't have no problem there. Imagine how I was feeling. And I remember we're all sitting by ringside and we see these monitors on the side of the cage and they're all black. And, and at 6:45, bang, all you see the beautiful cage, the battle cage, the ring and everything on the monitors. In that second, all the lawyers of Battlecade and Guccione and me and Mike Thomas, we jumped up like so high in the air and started everybody hugging, and all the reporters looking, what happened, what not happened. And then they found out that the signal and the pay-per-view is going to come off and the Battlecade happened. So that's just a story that I want you to know, the history of that first event in Montreal. And then they came in, they were so embarrassed that they couldn't, they convinced the sheriff of the police chief of Kahnawake to bypass the rule of his community and use the rules of Quebec. So he emitted some warrants, and they came in and they busted the doors down of the fighters in their hotel in Montreal, and it made national news and front page and cover of Penthouse magazine.
Oh my gosh.
Eight extreme fighters put to jail. We had to bail them out on Monday morning. So that's a great story. You know,
That's gonna make
sport.
That's gonna make for a great movie of one day. Like, there's got to be like a documentary, like get some of the minds, like whether they're the fighters. That'd be crazy. It'd be like, yeah, like that make for. Oh my gosh.
It's almost written now. It's almost finished. I'm working with one of my friends in UK. He's writing it. He's writing the synopsis, and we're looking forward to presenting it it'd be a great Netflix movie.
I think if it's a mini series, that'd be great. Like part 1, part 2, part 3, and then part 4, and then part 5. Like what happens now after 1996, and then like that'd be crazy. I think that's oh man, I'm gonna watch it when it comes on. I'm gonna like make sure to share it. Be like, if you're a fight fan, you want to understand fight history, please watch this documentary. Oh, I hate to ask this because like it's kind of dark on your side. Can you turn the light on if possible? Or
where?
it's a bit dark. Yeah, just a bit. Don't worry. There we go.
I'm in my room, so okay.
There we go. That's better. Yeah. That's better. Yeah. It was a bit dark because you were fading in and out, but don't worry. Like it still makes for. We had the chemistries there, but wow, 1996.
We were talking about Kyokushinkai, and one guy I didn't mention, but did you ever hear Jean Rivière?
You were telling me about him. What is Jean Riviere's role in Kyokushin? He's kind of like on the Mount Rushmore of Quebec Kyokushin. It's like Riviere, then there's Gilbert, and then there's like Daniel Gauthier and
well, no, you know that guy you told me about there that I don't remember his name there, that heavyweight you told me about, the Kyokushin guy that I like there. You mentioned his name and I said, yeah, that's the guy.
My coach?
Yeah, maybe your coach. What's his name again?
Mohammed?
Yeah, Mohammed. Yeah, Sheikh. Well, he was like a Mohammed Sheikh of Kyokushinkai, because he was one of the guys that went to Japan and placed, and I think he was 3rd place. But he was just like a big guy. He was 300 pounds, and he had legs like tree trunks. So I wanted to mention that a lot of history between me and Jean Rivière. And because of Jean Rivière, there's a lot of fight game stories of Canada that are really interesting. Did you know that Jean Rivière, again, destiny came calling, because Master Andre Gilbert phoned me up and told me that I have this student kid. He's really broke. He has no money, but he's got a lot of talent. And I had just done Karate Mania, and they thought I could help the kid out. And I said, I don't know what I can do. And I was just thinking, what am I going to do with a 300-pound karate fighter, that never kickboxed, never ate a jab in his mouth. And, this is a different sport. I hang up. I swear to God, it must have been like 5-10 minutes after, I get a call from Brazil. This guy, I couldn't understand hardly what he was saying. Theriault, Brazil, vale tudo. Vale tudo, I knew what that meant. So I said, oh, so then he passes me a girl that speaks a little better English, and he says, we're doing the World Vale tudo Championships, and we know that you're the man in Canada for talent. We know you have access to some fighters, and we need a big boy. And 5 minutes before, I had talked to Jean. So then they tell me, and they're telling me the guy's broke. I knew that I felt bad about booking him, but I warned him before. I said, you're telling me I could fix your problem of being broke. I just got a deal for 5,000 US. All right, for you to go fight in Brazil, all expense paid with me and another cornerman. I'll train you for a month in jiu-jitsu, and we'll go there and we'll. But I doubt you're gonna have a chance to win this thing. But if I know you have the courage and you're not gonna be scared, and I would like to have the permission to throw the towel fast if I see you're in danger because you're not prepared for this. I never expected that fight to go there. So we get to Brazil with this iconic, huge 300-pound Jean Riviere, very, very mild-mannered. Remind me of Jean-Yves because he was not a bragger, very calm demeanor, but the killer eyes. And I said, wow, this guy's kind of cool. We get in the lobby hotel. Ois Gracie and Julio Gracie and the father and Ois and Orion Gracie, the three legends. So I'm like a kid in a candy store. I'm seeing Jean-Yves Theriault is iconic in kickboxing, but Ois Gracie's the first. So he's iconic, and so I'm kind of shy, and I'd like to. Is there a chance that we can have a picture together, Mr. Gracie? So, oh, no problem. He's very, very nice. And I tell you, I don't know if you ever heard of my brother. He's a kickboxer, Jean-Yves Theriault. And then he freaked. He saw the Iceman, the guy with the left hook from hell. And then that's exactly what he said. And I said, yeah. So we're all excited about this, and I'm excited. He's talking to me, and it's like becoming a friend with mine and I could see the tension in that weigh-in because he's a jiu-jitsu guy, and in Brazil, the biggest sport is capoeira. And there's a real rivalry between capoeira fighters and the jiu-jitsu. So I'm then in the lobby and everything, and Grace says, "Oh, I'd really like to learn some stuff from you, So I said, "Well, why don't you come up in my room?" And so you can just imagine me. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, but not at that level at all. Like this is Brazilian. I get in his room and in my room, and we move the bed. And he must have tapped me out like 5-6 times, just like rolling on the ground, showing me stuff. Okay, you get under here and do this. And in return, I was shown weight transfer, weight in the front, weight in the back, left hook, uppercut, blah, blah, blah. And he was freaking out on what I was showing him. While I was doing that, the Brazilian cheaters, they took advantage of me not being there, and they did that phony draw that turned out it was supposed to be an international tournament. That turned out that the first fight of the night is going to be Canada versus Brazil. Jean Riviere, a Kyokushinkai fighter, going to the gauntlet against the best fighter in the tournament. And the only reason they wanted that because they seen Jean Riviere walk with a limp when he was coming in. He had a sort of Charlie horse. He got hurt in training, and they seen that, and they tried to we'll give Hulk an easy fight. We get in that, I was really mad, and then Gracie started explaining that's the way they are. These guys are cheaters and everything for capoeira to win. So they sort of bonded with us, the Gracies with me and my 2 Canadians there for the fight. And in the dressing room, they came to wish us luck, and they had half of the crowd was capoeira, the other half was jiu-jitsu. So when we came in that ring, Jean Riviere was like, and I remember I was looking at him train, and he was fat at that time, and he was doing some shadow boxing, and you see the rolls move and everything. I said, Jean, put your gi on. I want you to put your gi on. It's going to look cool. You remember I told you I wanted to give you an image? You're going to be called the Canadian Iceberg. People recognize Theriault as the trainer and the promoter of the Iceman. Therefore, you're bigger than Jean-Yves as size-wise, and with that big gi, you look like a big block of ice. So we're going to call you the Canadian Iceberg. I like it. Okay, so we put that. So he agrees with me, and he puts his gi on, and we put the boxing gloves on, and we go out to fight. That was the best move I ever did because he pulls an upset. The guy comes in. He said, "I'm gonna stand up with him a bit instead of bringing him down, and which Jean would have lost." He said, "I'm gonna play with him a little bit to try to look good." And Jean roundhouse kicks him in the inside thigh, inside of the leg. That Kyokushinkai move, followed by a reverse punch right on the jaw. The guy lifted up. This guy was 5'10", but about 230. Really, really barrel chest. He lifts off the ground. He falls on the ground in convulsion. He's swallowing his tongue. Well, these cheaters, they can't afford him losing because in the next week, they're supposed to have the huge main event with him and Orion Gracie in front of 50,000 people at the Maracanã soccer stadium in Brazil. We ruined all that with one punch by a Kyokushinkai fighter from Canada, from Andre Gilbert. And then we had to get escorted out of the ring by the military with machine guns in the room. And then the Gracie came in our room, and they were like so happy. We're just like, we had just made their day. We had knocked out. And the next day, we were all over in the papers, front page, Master Hawk KO'd. And I left town really fast. Jean decided to go train with Fetusa. You remember
Fetosa,
Fetusa?
Globe Fetosa. Yeah,
Yeah,
question mark kick.
yeah. And in San Jose, San Paulo. And I said, well, you shouldn't stay here, man. You shouldn't stay here. He decided, no. And he had his money, and I had my commission, and he was full of money now. And he thought he had his ticket to come back. Well, I left with the other trainer, and he went to train for a week to learn more with that champion, Fetosa. And it turns out when he comes back to take his plane, the plane ticket has been canceled. The whole tournament fell apart. As soon as Jean upset that, these crooks canceled the whole commission. All the managers were all mad because nobody got paid except Victor Theriault's fighter, because I didn't let my fighter leave the hotel room before my 5,000. I said, that's the deal I made before I came. So they had, at the end of this, after the show is all finished, all the trainers wanted me to split Jean's purse with them. And I said, no way, man. I'm here to protect my fighter. I've always been like that. When I do deals with fighters to go in town, out of town, or whatever, this is the deal we made. When I arrive, I'll expect this, the per diem for the fighters, and this and this. And this, I do the same when they come to fight for me. So it's, I've learned a lot through those adventures, and that story about Jean Rivière, I think it's a time. It's a certain time of the sport where people would go to these events that sometimes you just didn't know who you were dealing with. So I'm glad that I protected him, but he should have listened to me and took that plane right out of that Brazil, because it turned out that he had to pay something like $2,500 for a one-way trip back. So he still maybe was ahead 1,000 at the end, but just the fact that he all that money that he had made, and by the passion of wanting to go learn more of his sport, it turned out that it cost him his purse.
It's crazy. It's just crazy. And I know there's so many stories we have, but there's one I want to get to. So we have a mutual friend, you can say, in the combat sports scene, aka Ray Thompson of Upstate Karate. Shout out to Upstate Karate, Pitch Black Sports. If you're in South Carolina and you want free ad read here, if you need stuff, go to them. If the Ray Thompson, father of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, describe that to me. What was it like seeing him in the ring of combat or kickboxing?
Well, I didn't know anything about this kid. I have to give credit to the IKF, Steve Fossum, because they have an organization where they do a lot of amateurs. Even if I'm with the ISKA now, I love all the organization. I have no politics, and they were doing an event. I get a call from this guy, Ray Thompson. I didn't know who he was. I'm from Montreal. He's from South Carolina. And he says, my name is Ray Thompson, and I'd like you to see my boy fight. Yeah, okay. Well, what, you send me a tape? Or no, we're doing a live television thing, and I wanted to see if I can pay your flight and your hotel and your per diem, and have you do the play-by-play of of my son's fight. What I didn't know is Ray had seen what the association I had with my brother, how Jean-Yves became a star in a sport where they had no stars. Everybody, in boxing, you had the Sugar Ray Leonards, you had the Alis, and in kickboxing, you had a few, but not very many. You had the Benny the Jet Urquidez, you had Don the Dragon Wilson, but they never went to where they go to another level, like Jean-Yves did, where Showtime and NBC Sports and CBS and Wide World of Sports would film this fight. So, it became so Ray Thompson, I think, wanted to associate, he idolized the Iceman. And when I went to his school, the first thing I saw was a huge banner, which was Jean-Yves' slogan, which is, the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. And it was that. I said, hey, that's Jean-Yves' slogan. He said, yeah, I remember Jean-Yves saying that, and I got it framed in my gym. So there was like Iceman connection there. So then I'm sitting down, I'm ready with my headset to do the play-by-play of this. I want to see what this kid's about. One thing I noticed, I said, shit, he's got good looks. He's not a fat guy. You know, as a promoter, you say, wow, this kid is going to be a babe magnet. He's going to be, the guys are all going to want to be like him. Now, if he can fight, boy, I'm going to seriously look at him. I get there, it'll last like 30 seconds or 40 seconds. Bang, 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 bang. The guy's knocked out cold. And then it's a live event where they have to fill in that hour time, and we have to look at the angles from different angles and try to analyze. And then I have to sit Wonder Boy sitting by me to just add time to the telecast, because people are supposed to watch a TV special and then watching this main event. And then I go to, so I couldn't get a good read on a guy when you just got 30 seconds. I said, well, it looks like he hits hard. But to me, that guy took a dive. When you looked at the fight, I couldn't want to say that in the thing, but it looked like he was so scared to get knocked out after the beat. He probably stunned. He said, I don't want any more of this guy. So what happens, we went to this huge party in a type of bar where they live. And they had prepared, you know, big meal and everything, and, you know, celebrate the victory. But they had these giant screen, and they put the tape of all the Wonder Boys' old fights. Well, then my eyes were like this. I said, holy shit, this guy is going to be something else. So I said, you know, the picture I sent you with Steve Fossum and them, that day we sort of made it believe like we're signing up a little paper just to get, I said, well, we'll get the ball rolling just to get people thinking that I'm going to help you out, or yeah, I manage you now. And after that, I found a promoter, Joe Unman, in Montreal, that was doing a show, and I said, you got to try this kid out. So we did. I brought him in for a fight on an MMA show too. I wasn't promoter anymore. I was just like doing productions and helping people with TV. But I said, I'm not going to do a show with just one fight. I didn't have the undercard again. I had been out of the game for too long. I didn't know who was there. But every time I started doing pro shows in Montreal, the Montreal Boxing Commission, all the guys that were around those shows that I did with Wonder Boy for Joe Unman, they were all saying, where's that Wonder Boy? When do you bring him back? So you knew right there. And a story that nobody knows, I brought him, I was training George St. Pierre. I got to be the private strike coach of George St. Pierre in secret. Nobody knew after the Hendricks fight. He wanted to come back after a lot of people thought he had lost. And he hires me. I want you to show me everything, Johnny, technique, blah, 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 blah. So I started training GSP, and that was like, to me, a really cool thing. And then since I'm sort of managing Wonder Boy and I'm training GSP, I say to Ray says, Vic, is there any way we can? So I put them together. I remember one time we meet at the Grant Boxing Gym, and you would have seen the sparring. I was the corner man for GSP, giving him his water, and his dad in the other corner. And then you see you see a fight between GSP stand-up, the kickboxer against, just in kickboxing. And then you've seen just how far the striker was, the pure striker, kickboxing. And I remember when I come back after the first round, when I'm giving water to GSP said, man, Vic, I can't believe he was here, he was over there, and now he's there, and so he couldn't believe the speed. And after that, I got to see him spar with Adonis Stevenson. You know who Adonis Stevenson is?
Famous boxer, no?
Yeah, the famous boxer, that one of the hardest hitter in boxing, like the Mike Tyson of his generation in Quebec anyway. And I remember Otis Grant was watching the sparring. He said he couldn't believe it. He said, Vic, who is that kid? Who is that kid? And he punched out Joe Elson, who was a world champion at that time. He was playing with him. He had never boxed before, just in boxing. Wonder Boy Thompson. And after that, they put him. Grant sees that he's kicking the shit out of everybody in the gym. He says, "Okay, I'll get you do a sparring round, a few rounds with Adonis Stevenson." We didn't know who he was. He wasn't a world champion. And it's the only time I've seen somebody floor Wonder Boy with a body shot. Adonis Stevenson. So just a little story.
Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, he's honestly though, like he's also another one that got me into martial arts, just the definition you said, good looks, humble, great character, great fighter. Like he really is like the poster boy of what it is to be like a good martial artist in and out of the cage or ring.
Yeah. I'm really happy because his stock had went up like this and then it went down. That last fight, my man is back. When he won that fight, I'm so happy for him because I had told all my friends, that's why they call me. He calls me Turbo Man all the time, you know. And he said Turbo, and I would tell him, you know, there's to me, he is an iconic. I believe this. I said in history, if he can win the UFC after what he did in kickboxing, he'll be like the Pele of kickboxing, like Ali, a type of icon. And it didn't happen. So a lot of people say, "Yeah, what happened to your Wonder Boy? What happened to your Wonder Boy?" But I feel that it takes a while to adapt to a new sport like that. And I think that now he's got his second win. I think he's got another go at it. The champion is a really tough guy, that Usman or whatever his name is. The
He's a
guy.
wrestler, but I always said it too. I think it's a very tough fight for Usman. And I'm not saying this because I'm a fan of Wonder Boy, but Usman's never faced a striker like that. You can't prepare for a striker like Wonder Boy.
That's it.
There's no one like him. Like when people say, "Oh, listen." He is kind of like George St. Pierre. He's got like with the kickboxing acumen, but George, he's like he's not well, George is more of a complete martial artist, but Wonder Boy keeps to his root, but he's got great takedown defense, and that's the thing. You don't know how to prepare for that, so I think he can give Usman a very tough run.
Yeah, yeah. I can't wait to see. I know he's got to probably have another major fight before he gets into the mix to get a title fight. But he's getting back in. I think he's probably in the top 5 now.
Always.
So I wish him a lot of luck.
Me too. Yeah, man. I mean, he's such. It was as I mentioned, the guys that got me into martial arts. I mean, other than Conor McGregor in 2015, it was in this order: John Jones, Gegard Mousasi, and then Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Those were the 3 that got
Wow,
me into.
that's cool. I really I appreciate you talking about him because I really appreciate the family. When I was promoting him, I sort of lost him when Chuck Norris phoned for the World Combat League, and then he was knocking 2 guys every night. He had 2 fights. He would knock two a night. So I knew I would. Let's see. He's not going to come back in Canada, and then he signed with the UFC. So I'm behind him. I'm happy for him, and I hope one day that now that I'm in charge of ISKA Canada, that I can have him do seminars here and give back to kids.
He does that. He's such a gentleman. So, yeah, I mean, so everyone, if you love martial arts, please follow Stephen Wonderboy Thompson on all social media platforms and his YouTube channel, where he gave Vic a shout out too. He actually gave you a shout out, like you're saying, yeah, like he was mentioning Jean-Yves, and I think he mentioned you too. Like, so it's pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, he went. Well, he posted last. I never seen this, and I fell on it. And I sent it to you. He was, how he teaches this thing, and he was teaching a new technique. Well, I felt like phoning Ray, and I said, "That's not a Jean-Yves technique, but it's fun anyway that you mentioned us." Jean-Yves never leads with his front kick. Rarely, it's always the front leg, not the back leg. But it was great. It's and all in fun. Me and Ray get along good.
Yeah, he's awesome, man. Like, honestly, like when I spoke to him today, like, I mean, I don't speak to him too much because, he's busy, but he's such a gentleman, man. Like, I love that, man. He's done such a good job for martial arts in South Carolina. And if there is a Black Belt Hall of Fame internationally, he should be in it.
Yes, oh yeah, definitely. The Ray was a tough fighter, man. When he was young, he was like, he did pit fights.
Yeah.
He did actual pit fights. So you could tell he's a strong guy.
Yeah. Gentleman, but don't mess with him. He's a gentleman. That guy's a real man's man. Like, like that's what I love about like speaking to him. He's got stories. You've also been privileged to be working with Mike Tyson in some capacity. What was that like to meet Iron Mike?
That was a freaky dream come true. Just fun. It wasn't a paying gig when you think of it, the first one in Toronto. But um, it was just unreal. I turned out I didn't get along at all with the guy promoting, had the gig, but he didn't know what the hell he was doing, so he had to hire somebody that knew a little bit of some ideas, promotional ideas. So I got the gig with Peter George, who was a great uh, a guy that prepares events, and he's got that touch, and he's a great, he knows what he's doing. So he was working with me on this, and we were working for a guy that he wasn't very fun to work with. But we said, "Oh, let's do it because we'll meet Mike Tyson and we'll get a chance to get some of our friends to go." So it was an adventure for me. Michael Landsberg's a friend of mine in Toronto. Well, I got to give him a favor and give him the exclusive interview with Mike, so that was the kind of points for me. And I was in charge of a press scrum in at the Maple Leaf Garden, and so I was like greeting all the reporters and which one can get the mic, whatever. And another time I was, I don't know if you know the dragon, one of the dragons, Mike Wickerly. Okay, of the, him, the King of Wall Street, that show
Dragon's
Dragon.
Den.
Yeah. So Mike Wickley is a character in Toronto, and he was a big boxing fan, and he was begging me to meet Mike. So we let him come in the dressing room, not the dressing room, the hotel room to meet Mike because he's king of Wall Street and everything. And it was hilarious. Mike is on his bed with his shirt playing like Nintendo. He's always on these games all the time, and Kiki, his wife, is controlling everything. And this guy comes in like a storm. And Mike, you can't, if he's in a bad mood, you don't want to, you don't want to mess with him. You just let him play his little video games. I was with him for a week. He's like a powder keg, but he's the nicest guy. You can tell when he doesn't want to be bothered. This guy comes in and he wants to bother everybody. So he's yelling and, "Hey, Mike Tyson, that game you're playing, I own that. I marketed that. Hey, let's do a Mike Tyson game." Right away he wants to talk business, and the guy
Oh
was just
my
to play
God.
the game and other stuff. But then when something happened, Mike is shirtless and he's got all these tattoos. So Wickerly, to bond with him, he decides to take his suit off, his tie and everything, and he gets shirtless, and he's got this huge dragon in the back. So they bonded because Tyson loved tattoo, and he's like, so I had my photographer with him, and I took a picture, and that picture, I gave it to Wickley, and I got to go to the Dragon's Den's house to give it to him, and he placed it in his house. And, now he owns the El Macombo in Toronto. He bought where the Rolling Stone played, and maybe one day the World Combat Arena will be going to the El Macombo because of, like friendships with the owner. So,
That's why, man. You know how to create good rapport and relationships with people, man. Like that's something like I try to really take from my guests I have. Like, how do you form relationships? You just got to give value. You got to treat them like equal. So that's why, you do a good job at it, so.
well, you treat people like the way you want to be treated, I guess. And I find that martial artists, a lot of times they're left to themselves. The reason, I'd like to personally thank Corey Schaefer for giving me that position. But I find that, by being head of the ISKA in Canada, maybe that little fighter on the Halifax that nobody would even think of looking at, by him fighting on an ISKA event eventually, well, the pictures will go on the national ISKA. He wins an ISK Canadian title fight. Well, now maybe ISK Holland will want a intercontinental type of fight or a North American fight with an American, and it will start getting these guys out of the shadow. Everybody in Montreal has titles. There's titles of just like a Cracker Jack box of little prizes, but there's no credibility to these. I'm not saying the mine has more credibility, no, but now by getting to create the guys that will win titles, even if they're not my association. They phone me up and say, "I have a really good fight. My champion's fighting that other guy's champion." Well, I might be able to say, "Okay, let's make it an ISK Quebec title fight, or let's make it a Canadian title fight." And there's no politics anymore. It's for the good of the sports. So therefore, some of the guys that from Fight Quest or some of the guys from Montreal Fight League, they have some great athletes in these leagues, and everybody's, "Oh, they're my athletes and they're my athlete, I'm my athlete." And nobody's growing. Nobody's getting anywhere. So me, I'm just like an open book. I run a company, promotional company. I want the promotional company to be respect the sport and the image. And I'm looking for fighters that, like the Renel Lamar of this, Alain Bonamy. I have great. I have this young kung fu star Matson Leon that's coming up. I have Lucien Cognel. I have Jonathan Doucette, Jonathan Meunier. We built great fighters from that are coming up, but they all respect their opponents and respect. They have like that demeanor that I look for when I'm when I deal with somebody, and coaches. coaches, sometimes they have a hard time because they think I'm setting up a fighter or whatever. I said, listen, it's a tournament, it's a sport. Your fighter has to eventually, if there's a 4-man tournament, you'll have to meet him anyway. So why do I have to? There's nothing that insults Victor Theriault more when I'm dealing with a manager and he says, can you give me a fighter with a glass eye and a wooden leg to make sure that I win? you know, well, to me, I mean, this is not sports. You do sports for sports. They're in an environment. I hired the ISKA Canada hired Alberto Mercedat. He's going to be my official director. He's going to find my referees, my teams, and I've hired. I got a guy now in charge of Nova Scotia, and another guy. I just talked to Andy Young. I don't know if you know Andy Young. He's going to be rep for the ISKA in New Brunswick. I have Jean-Yves in Ontario, and I have Crew Allen. I don't know if you know Crew Allen is one of the best Muay Thai coaches, and he's out of the Hamilton area. So I'm trying to get one of the best out of Western Canada and be able to do a pool where I'll be able to lift up the phone and who do you got out there? Who's the best? So the reason people are wondering, what am I doing with ISKA? ISKA is a bit of a gateway for some of the guys to enter Glory one day or enter Bellator. ISKA is really, really tied in with Bellator through Corey Schaefer and Scott Coker and Mike McCoy and Mike Sawyer. They used to almost do all the Strike Force tournaments, the Gung Lee fights. So one of my heroes as a promoter is not only Dana White. I really like Scott Coker. I find that he's a futuristic type of promoter, and people don't know that he flew to Montreal with some Japanese people to bring K1 to Montreal, and we got rebuffed, and no, we don't want that K1 here. But I always appreciate the fact that Scott Coker did come to Montreal and try to get it going here. And it didn't happen, but I don't know if you know, but I got interviewed to be head of K1 USA with Scott Coker, and when I was in Tokyo for Jean Riviere, because I did go to K1 twice, and it's a different world.
They treat you like a king there, man. That era, like that golden era, guys like Andy Hug, Michael Thompson, Peter Ertz, Sam Greco, Jean Riviere, who fought in there, younger Nesto Hoost.
Le Benaire, Jérôme Le Benaire.
Le Benaire is a Taekwondo, you were telling me, right?
No, Le Benaire is a tough guy from France.
Oh, that's it. Jérôme Le Benaire. Okay, now I'm like, okay,
he fought Ernesto Hoost a few times, and I heard he's been in wars, so he's a
Semi Schultz. There's so many, but there's it's so iconic. It's like there's boxing, people know boxing, like the era of Ali and all those guys. Then you have K1. It's like there's this one video where they're talking to Japanese fans. Who do you think's going to win K1 in Japanese? And they're like, one person was like Andy Hug, and another one was like Peter Ertz. Another one was like Ernesto Hoost. And you just see they're all walking in the arena. It's like iconic. It's the Japanese know how to put on a show.
Well, not only that, it's the structure of the show. And one of my associate is France Cabet, who used to be the head TV producer for the Formula One Grand Prix of China for 7 years. So he knows television. He was producing Hockey Night in Canada. And he always told me that sport will never go anywhere if you don't create a structure like the Grand Prix. Instead of cars, it's fighters. But look how that is. So they get every country getting a champion, and then they meet in a 16-man tournament. Then it comes to 8, and then it comes to 4, and then it comes to 2. And the guy gets $100,000. It's the most beautiful format ever, And when I went to K1 the first time with Jean Riviere, I signed a $60,000 deal for 3 fights for Jean Riviere when he didn't have one kickboxing fight. Only a lucky punch against that guy in Brazil that, I was telling you the story about him having to wear that gi. But the fact that he wore that gi in that cage in Brazil, well, they had all those pictures of the guys taking the pictures, and a month later, I received a package from Japan, from all those reporters that were ringside in Vale Tudo in Brazil, and they had pictures, 5-page color pictures of Jean Riviere knocking out the Brazilian guy, and they had a little cartoon on every page, which was a cartoon of Jean Riviere with his big white gi and all around with ice, and it had the Canadian iceberg on it. And I said, "Wow, this is very cool." And then I get a call, and I make a deal, and we get a 3-fight deal to go to K1, Tokyo, Osaka, and Tokyo again.
That is impressive, man. That's yeah. And you said you've seen Andy Hug himself, you've seen Fiho, you've seen the who's who, man. Like, what's it like to be in a room with them? Like when you saw Andy Hug, like that's Andy, goddamn Hug. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
and
At
what was
first,
that?
I thought he actually hated me because, you know, Jean Riviere was staying there for months before, and he was always on the phone with me. So when I got there the second time, well, Jean Riviere was under the spell of Andy Hug. Andy Hug would say jump, and Jean Riviere would jump. So he was like, like, what's he doing here? But I was his manager and I was his corner man, so I was just there for the week for the fight, and I want to see how's it going and everything. But he wasn't talking very much, but I still appreciated him and he knew I was Jean-Yves' brother, and I think that, and he knew the mystique of the Iceman, and probably thought, well, I could beat him, or I don't know. There was some type of vibe, but I admired him because I was like a kid in a candy store again, and I was watching him train. They would do all these weird training exercises that was really, really cool to watch. And he had taken John Riviere under his wing. So to me, I'll always appreciate it. And the most fascinating thing, though, when you get to K1 is to realize how big it is. They sell out in 5-10 minutes. Arena 20,000. Okay, the tickets go out right away. The souvenir programs, like you get an 8x10 program usually. With them, it's like a huge thing, and every page is glossy color with Nissan and Fuji TV and Panasonic, all the big boys, all paying full pages. The first row VIPs are like $2,000 a seat. The fourth, fifth row are all 1,000, and the cheapest ticket upstairs on the bleachers with the pigeons is about $70 US or 100. So imagine the gate. And then at one time they had Michael Buffer there, and then they had a symphonic orchestra. And it's the first time I get there. I walk out in the stadium. Jean's got his 2 hands on my back, was getting ready to go down. So they're telling us, well, you're going to stop off in the stadium, and you're going to where there's a next. You're going to stay there with your boy. So I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but it's like a huge dome, and with different level. So Jean gets there, and then Andy Hug comes out there, and then another guy. So they have like the 8 gladiators of the night, all with lasers, and then with the music, Van Gogh music, and they come down with the drama. I had never seen anything like it. And then you see Michael Buffer in the ring, it's just like it's just unreal how much money and how much I get in my hotel room. He had a robe with my name on it, and almost like all these fruits and welcome to Japan, Mr. Theriault. It was like unbelievable. I couldn't believe how, and I was saying to myself, I was in kickboxing for years and years. I had never heard of K1. Where was I? And then after that, I said, shit, I thought that I did some great things in Canada with Showtime and NBC and working under Real Marseille or helping build the sport. But then I looked at that and I said, this is where the sport should have went. And when I got interviewed for the job, he takes me to a restaurant, and my heart was like out of my, he was actually asking me, what would you do they wanted to bring K1 to North America, and I was getting interviewed. I was supposed to leave with the whole fighters and the bus going to the airport. And Stacy says to me, Mr. Theriault, Ishii would like you to stay one more night and take you out tonight and discuss the possibility. So what? And then I had to call my wife. I won't be coming next day. They want me to stay here and make me a proposition. My wife was freaking because we thought we'd be able to stay in Montreal and build K1 in Vegas because they wanted the market in Vegas.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, they wanted me, but so I would have had to move my life and change my life and go live there. I regret a bit, but I mean, I didn't take the decision there. But then I didn't know they were also interviewing Scott Coker, who was at the time working with the ISKA, and he already had Strikeforce, and he already had a TV deal with ESPN. So the decision went there. But I still feel a lot of pride and proud that I could have, and I know it's funny, but I know I would have done good because at that time I was working for RDS, and I had gained access to the library of the PKA. Okay, the greatest fights of all time in the PK, and I would sort of pick which one of my viewers in RDS with Jean-Paul Chatelain would watch. Therefore, with that, I had a barter deal where our commercials would be putting, while you were watching Kickboxing RDS, I would be able to promote the Karate Mania show coming up. And that was the deal I made with the library of PK. So this is what I had submitted to K1. I said, you give me that library, and I'm gonna be making a deal with TSN and RDS, and out of your 200 fights, I'm gonna choose the best 50. Can you imagine how good those 50 fights would be with all the wars they had in K1? And I would have put that on huge HD TV with a Canadian play-by-play guy to sell that it's coming to the Montreal Forum. I know we would have put 20,000 people in there, but the government said no.
It's politics. You've done so much, and they're continuing to do more. What do you think the future of martial arts and stand-up fighting holds? What do you think is gonna be like? How can we finally get it legalized? And get all the red tape out? Because I really think when people look at MMA, yeah, it's great, but people like watching knockouts, Vic. As you know it, I know it. They love watching good stand-up. So what do you think? When do you think this is going to improve, and how do you think it's going to change when the red tape gets lifted and we finally have legalized kickboxing and MMA across Canada? And yeah, in general.
Well, I just signed a deal with a guy named Denis Hubert of I Feel Virtual, and I don't know if you hear of a lot of events now that you can watch in virtual reality, and I feel that the future of the sport is going to be because of the COVID for the next 2-3 years. People have to sort of prepare for another way of looking at fights, another way of doing fights, and maybe an experience that'll be more immersive, I guess. Something where you feel like you're part of it. You're feeling ringside, and I'm kind of excited about this. I sent you some of the stuff, and when it's time, I'm going to hope you can let people know that we're building this. I feel what my company, me and Johan Corbeil, my partner, we've reserved the department I Feel Martial Arts. There's all kinds of division in the I Feel Virtual, and so we reserve the I Feel Martial Art to be giving a window to some guys that never had a chance. I see a lot of guys, some of the masters that I like, karate masters in Canada, the Karate Senfukis and the Karate Sportif, the Kyokushinkai group, the Chung Li. Well, a lot of them now, they're stuck with the COVID and they have no avenues, no way to, and now they're trying to do video teaching. And so what I'm hoping to do is maybe bring up the experience so that the people will, the martial art legends, I'll be able to preserve them. The I Feel Virtual project is, like your podcast. I really like what you're doing, and I'd like to maybe do a test one day, and one of your guests that I might be able to get you, a great legend. Well, I know that if I get you that guy, and I put I Feel Virtual so that wherever setting you're in or where he's at, well, when you're interviewing him, well, you'll be able to see his surrounding. You're in his gym. And then when he's talking to you about his championship belts, well, he's showing them to you in his gym, and it gives you an added value, an added experience. So it's all things that I'm working on. I'd like to submit the idea to get back with the maybe producing some events, some gala events, protecting and preserving the legacies of the legend of the Canadian fighting arts. It's always been a plan of mine. I've been writing and writing and writing with COVID. Now I have all these, like you told me, you said about the Netflix idea. Well, that's where I want to go. There's like an adventure of a lifetime. I've been almost 50 years in martial arts. I started at 15, and all the legends that I've seen and all the time and the changing. And by being the Iceman's cornerman, well, it made me travel all over the world and meet all the players in the game. So today, I can help out some fighters. I'm open to any fighters out of Canada that have talent to contact, join ISKA Canada, on the Facebook, and contact Alberto Mercedat, or contact myself through, the emails or the WCA Canada, and maybe we can do something for them, because to me, if I can help out anybody in the martial arts, it's a pleasure for us. And eventually maybe it'll come back to us by having one of their athletes fight on our cards.
It's amazing. Well, first of all, obviously went over an hour because it was just so fun hearing these stories and talking to you. I personally just want to say thank you for what you've done, you and your brother, for martial arts in Canada. I mean, you guys have really done a lot. I remember before I met my current coach, I wanted to lose weight to get to fight in a lighter weight. I was weighing 215 pounds. I was a heavyweight. I was in a dark
Wow, I
place.
can't believe that. Well,
I dropped I
wow.
dropped down to 170. And you know why? Because every morning, I remember on a Joe Rogan episode, they quoted the Theriault method. If you want to really learn how to do good leg kicks, do stair runs every morning, over and over again, every day. You're going to work your fast twitch muscles, and you're going to burn fat, and then you're going to also get strong lower body. So I want to give credit to both you and your brother for that, and just what you've done. You guys have done so much. I mean, and it's just such an honor to host you, Vic. Shout out to Emilio Greco too, who's a friend of ours. Emilio was the one that helped me connect to you and propose, like, look, you have a show, you want to talk martial arts, Vic is your guy to talk to about the history of martial arts, since you guys are since you're an encyclopedia and you want to learn more. So I really want to thank you, Vic. It was a big pleasure hosting you. And where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Well, they can send me an email at pvtinc@videotron.ca, or also just look up on the ISKA Canada on Facebook, and just send us an email saying send or the worldcombatarena.com.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Well, I want to really thank you once again. If you ever want to come on again, doors always open. It was a pleasure having you on, hearing these stories. And you have even more, I mean, we couldn't really cover it, but I think next time we'll do like story time part 2 of martial arts with Vic Theriault. And maybe one day I'll have you and your brother together, but or maybe you and Emilio. But as mentioned, doors always open. Yeah,
Mancini.
of course. Justin, Justin's a great guy, man. And shout out to Justin Mancini, man. He's been on my show, but when he came on, it was like so unstructured. Like
it doesn't matter, man. I wanted that guy to fight so bad I told him, I said, I really want you to do one fight with my suit, so I have you in my library. And we almost got it going because his wife was working at the casino.
Yeah.
And man, I would have blew the roof off, because all the staff would have wanted to see him fight, because they all know his wife. And I still regret today that we didn't do it, but give him a shout out. And Andrew, I'd really like to thank you, and keep up the good work promoting the martial art. Thank you so much for taking the time to interview me.
Yeah, no problem, man. So the episode will be up on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and all audio platforms probably by Saturday or next week. But the announcement will be coming on that Vic Theriault was on my show. So once again, Vic, you have a great night, and thanks once again.
Thank you.